thought that this week we could take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of alternative schooling. Like we've actually touched upon all the good things, how alternative schools have a smaller number of kids with a teacher, and how they are very child paced, so they let a child have the freedom of choosing or not choosing to do a certain activity, and they let the child take the lead, and they're very flexible in terms of not forcing your child to sit down and do something and all of that. There are also certain disadvantages that we should be aware of before we go down this path of non conventional schooling. Our daughter has been in an alternative school ever since her schooling journey started, and this is her fourth year. So, I thought I would enlist all the things that we thought were not quite so good, and still why we've continued on this journey. So, the first thing about alternative schools, like the first disadvantage, is the lack of exposure and dependence on the parent led community. So, what happens is most of these alternative schools rely heavily on the involvement of parents. They take the parents into consideration while making future plans, and there are meetings and workshops, and they also are very open to the expertise brought in by parents. So if I say I can offer German to the kids, they're very happy to bring me on board and introduce German in the school. Or like dance or Sanskrit, if another parent offers to do that, then the school is also very open and willing to let parents be more involved in their education process. But what happens is if a parent decides to move or to change schools or to discontinue, then there is no continuity to these sessions as well. So, what happened in Rumi school was they were offering dance. But when the two mums who conducted dance sessions couldn't make it anymore, that brought a stop to the dance sessions. So with dance or with Sanskrit or with storytelling, that discontinuity happens, as is the case with sports. Since alternative schools don't believe in competitive sports and don't have races or things like that, they also don't offer exposure to like hockey or basketball or table tennis. And I feel like exposing a child to many different things is very important so that you find out where your child's strengths lie, what your child does well. At least trying different things is quite important, which doesn't always happen in an alternative school. The second disadvantage is the finances. Since many of these alternative schools are not government regulated, they are private institutions, founded by passionate parents or people in the field of education who wanted to challenge the current school system, who wanted to take things in their hands and change it. So, what happens is the fees are very often quite high as compared to conventional schools, which is not always a bad thing because this means that the teachers and educators are being paid well. We all know that school teachers are grossly underpaid and highly overworked. So that really does not bode well for their patients in dealing with our children. So, when a teacher is really well paid and happy doing her job, it naturally makes a difference in the passion and involvement that the teacher brings in. So, the high fees are not like always bad, but it is something to consider. Like the school that Rumi is now going to is very expensive. Like, we are also stretched paying the annual fee. So that is another point you might want to think about, when you think about picking an alternative school. And the third disadvantage, one that I commonly find parents write to me about, is that the family is not usually on board. So, if you, as a young parent, have found a school and you're very excited, oh my god, like, look, they're doing things differently. Very often it is dismissed by your parents in law, by your own parents and relatives as, your whims and fancies. की अशी थोडी असते शाळा असं चालतं का so there are people who will ask you, why, like, what difference does it make? Like my mom, who is a teacher in a conventional school, whenever I tell her things that the alternative school is doing, ki, look, they had this activity that was brilliantly executed, she says, yeah, so what, we also do that with the kids. What is the big deal? What is all the fuss about? And they constantly worry about the SSC or ICSE, I mean your 10th standard, 12th standard exam, and how your child will cope then. So my mom is constantly concerned about that. She says, Atta teri theek hai, it's all right for now while she's young, but later on she has to get into the rat race. So how will she be prepared for that? And this opposition is very common from the family, if not from the family, even in some cases from your own partner, who says, like, why pay so much for a school that really just lets your child be, lets your child roam about? And then, I mean, anyway, in 8th or in 7th or at whichever grade the alternative school stops, our child has to anyway give the board exam. So what is the point? And then, this kind of debate at home is quite disheartening as a parent. I mean, you have so many other things to also look into: the running of the house, your child's nutritional demands, other things, that you're just finally giving in and caving and saying, all right, fine, like, let's just go with a conventional school. So, also, whether that kind of friction at home is worth it. It is worth it. I mean, I totally believe it is worth it. And our child is in an alternative school. But that is something that you really have to decide. Is education, and primary education at that, in the first few formative years, that important that I can really stand up to my own parents, to my partner, to my extended family and say, no, we are going down this route? Or whether I give in and say, अरे यार 19-20 का फर्क, so I will go and maintain the family harmony, because that also plays a role, right, for your child. If there are conflicts at home every day, then it's not a very happy environment in any case to raise a child in. And like, convincing the elders is quite a task. It's an uphill task because they have been brought up a certain way, they have seen the world very, very differently, so we can't actually blame them. So if you decide to go down the alternative route, then try to involve people who are against it as much as possible, by taking them to the school, by letting them talk to the teachers, the facilitators, letting them see the school campus, and sort of trying to peacefully bring them on board. So these are the three problems that we experienced and faced, that lack of continuity and exposure, the financial aspect, and the family being on board. But we are very happy with how our child is developing. And in the next video, I will be talking more specifically about the schools that my child has been to, and also what the different kinds of alternative schooling options in Pune are, and then what the differences between them are. Like, all alternative schools are also not alike, they are very different, and each one has is doing something brilliantly and not doing something else so well. So there will be another video of that, and hope this helps you make a decision. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Lots of love.